I'm looking for my son. Have you seen my son? He's there. He's been missing for 2 days.
Well, have you filed a report, ma'am?
Yes, of course we have.
Then trust us. We'll handle it.
But I'm his mother.
I realize that, ma'am, but you're looking for a needle in a haystack.
Do you have kids?
Yes, ma'am.
And what would you do if one of them was missing?
I'd probably be doing the same thing you're doing. Look, put yourself in your kid's shoes. Where would you go? What would you do?
Me? I'd probably be lying dead in a gutter somewhere.
Merry Christmas.
It was Christmas Eve in New York City, and Kevin McAllister had been separated from his family at the airport. He had spent the last few days wandering the city, running from Harry and Marv, exploring the sights of the city, and even making friends with the Central Park pigeon lady. Now, as the sun began to set and the city prepared for the new year, Kevin found himself alone at the enormous Christmas tree in Rockefeller Center. The crowds of people excitedly heading towards Times Square to watch the ball drop reminded him of his own loneliness. As night fell, the city skyline lit up the cold winter air with its dazzling lights. Kevin shivered against the cold and watched the people go by, their excited chatter and laughter filling the air. But amidst the excitement, Kevin felt a profound sense of loneliness and uncertainty. He remembered the kind, gentle pigeon lady he had met in the park. She had been so caring and understanding when he was feeling scared and alone. Maybe, just maybe, she would let him stay with her, if only for tonight. With a deep breath, Kevin turned and hurried back towards the park. As he made his way through the dark, winding paths, Kevin felt a mix of fear and anticipation coursing through his veins. He finally came to the familiar spot where the pigeon lady's alcove was. Heart racing, he stepped inside, hoping to see the lady there. To his relief, the pigeon lady was there, gently cooing to her flock of pigeons. When she saw Kevin approach, a warm smile spread across her face. "I was wondering if you'd come back," she said softly. Kevin hesitated, then nosed. "My family is somewhere in the city, but I don't know where to find them. And I don't want to get lost again, trying to get to Times Square on my own," he explained, his voice shaking slightly. The pigeon lady's eyes filled with compassion. "I see. Well, you're welcome to stay here with me tonight. It's not much, but it's warm and safe," she said gently, gesturing to the small alcove filled with straw and blankets. Kevin felt a wave of relief wash over him, grateful for her kindness and generosity. "Thank you," he said sincerely, his voice barely above a whisper. He settled in next to her, pulling the blankets around himself. The pigeon lady continued to feed her feathered friends, and Kevin found himself relaxing in her presence. He had never felt so safe and peaceful before. The constant anxiety and fear that had been weighing him down slowly began to fade away. "You know," the lady began, breaking the comfortable silence between them, "I don't get many visitors up here." Kevin looked up at her, his eyes shining with curiosity. "Really? You don't mind me staying?" he asked, scarcely daring to believe it. "Not at all," the lady assured him, reaching over to squeeze his hand. Kevin felt his throat tighten with emotion. "Thank you," he muttered, blinking back tears. "I don't know what I would have done if I hadn't found you." The lady smiled. "Well, you did find me," she said simply. "And now you're here, safe and sound." As the days passed, Kevin and the pigeon lady settled into a comfortable routine. During the day, Kevin helped her care for the pigeons, spreading straw and feeding them breadcrumbs. In the evenings, they huddled together in the alcove, sharing stories and stories of their lives. Kevin felt a growing sense of belonging, and the safety of the alcove became his new home. On Christmas Day, the pigeon lady surprised Kevin with a small Christmas tree. Together, they decorated it with ornaments and ribbons, while the birds looked on with curiosity. It was a simple, makeshift Christmas, but it felt magical and special. They enjoyed a simple dinner, sharing what little they had with each other. Kevin didn't even miss the big family celebrations he had missed. The cozy warmth of the alcove and the companionship of the lady made him forget his loneliness. He had found a true friend and a surrogate grandmother in the pigeon lady. As New Year's Eve approached, the city grew louder and more chaotic. The crowds of people heading towards Times Square buzzed with excitement, but Kevin and the pigeon lady remained cocooned in their little corner of peace. On New Year's Eve, they stayed up late into the night, watching the distant fireworks illuminate the city skyline. Kevin felt a sense of contentment and peace, like he had finally found his place in the world. The ball dropped, and as the countdown reached 0, their tiny alcove filled with the sounds of cheering and celebration that could be heard from the distance. Kevin and the lady exchanged smiles, both content in their own world. "Happy New Year," Kevin whispered. The lady smiled and squeezed his hand. "Happy New Year," she replied, her eyes shining. As the night wore on, the city quieted, and the pigeons settled down to sleep. Kevin felt a yawn escape his lips, and the lady, noticing, chuckled softly. "I think it's time for bed, little bird," she teased gently. Kevin couldn't help but smile at the comparison. "Okay. But can I ask you something?" he said, his voice soft. The lady nodded, encouraging him to ask. "Of course, what is it, dear?" she replied. Do you think I'll ever find my family?" he questioned quietly. Despite feeling safe and happy where he was, a part of him still yearned for his family, although it had become fainter every day. The lady reached out and gently brushed his hair back, her eyes filled with empathy. "I can't promise you will," she said softly, her voice gentle. "But I can promise you that no matter what happens, you'll always have a home here with me." The lady continued, her voice filled with reassurance. "You've been through a lot, but you're strong, stronger than you might realize. You've found a home here, not just in this alcove, but within yourself. I trust that no matter what happens or where you go next, you'll find your way. And if you ever need a safe harbor, this alcove will always welcome you with open arms. Remember that, Kevin." Kevin felt his eyes well up with tears, the weight of her words sinking in. He had been through so much, being lost and alone, but in the midst of it all, he had found a home and a family in the most unexpected place. He reached out and took her hand, squeezing it tightly. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice cracking with emotions. "For everything. For being here, for accepting me, for making this feel like home. I feel safe with you." The lady smiled warmly and pulled him into a gentle hug. "Always, my dear," she murmured, offering a shoulder to cry on. "Always." For the rest of the night, they sat in comfortable silence, the occasional tweet of a pigeon serving as a soothing lullaby. The city seemed distant and muffled, the chaos and festivities a world away from their peaceful alcove. Just before they drifted off to sleep, Kevin looked up at the lady. "Can I ask you one last thing?" "Of course," the lady replied warmly. "You can ask me anything, dear." Kevin took a moment considering his next words. Finally, he voiced his question. "Did you ever want a family of your own?" he asked softly, his eyes filled with curiosity and a hint of vulnerability. The lady paused, her eyes misty with nostalgia. "Yes," she replied after a moment, her voice gentle. "I did once, a long time ago. I had dreams of having a loving family, a child of my own, but life had other plans." She paused, lost in the memories of her past. "Sometimes things just don't turn out the way we expect. But I found a different kind of family in my flock. They've kept me company and given me a purpose." She spoke, a pigeon flew up and perched on her shoulder, nuzzling against her cheek. She smiled warmly and stroked its feathers. "We found each other, in our own way," she murmured. Kevin watched the interaction, his heart aching for her. He reached out and tentatively offered his hand to the pigeon near him, and it nudged against his fingers, gently pecking. A small smile tugged at his lips as he gently stroked its feathers, feeling a connection to the lady's makeshift family. Together, Kevin and the pigeon lady decided to find a more permanent home. They discovered a cozy yet empty apartment nearby that was available for rent. The kindly old landlord agreed to lease the unit to them, even though the pigeon lady hadn't mentioned her collection of pigeons. With time and care, the apartment became a warm and safe haven, filled with the comforting rustle of feathers, the warmth of their shared companionship, and the peace of their newfound home. In the days that followed, the lady's family began to join them in their newfound home, one by one. The apartment became a bustling hub of life as the pigeon lady's family settled in, adding their unique personalities and quirks to their new home. The once empty apartment transformed into a vibrant place filled with laughter, companionship, and countless pigeons. The family dynamic between the humans and their feathered companions brought joy and a sense of belonging to their newfound home. They shared meals together, with the occasional feather or piece of bread falling into their plates, causing bursts of laughter. The pigeons became their quirky pets, each with their distinct personalities. The notorious wet bandits, Harry and Marv, were finally caught by the authorities. Their attempted break-in at a local jewelry store had been foiled thanks to the sharp instincts of a brave pigeon who had spotted the burglars' suspicious behavior. The authorities, tipped off by the pigeon lady herself, who had observed the wet bandit's presence in the park, had been watching their movements for days. Under the cover of New Year's Eve festivities, the police staged a raid and apprehended Harry and Marv red-handed. As they were led away in handcuffs, Harry and Marv were shocked to find themselves face to face with none other than the pigeon lady and Kevin. The two kids had been visiting the lady when the police arrived, and seeing the burglars' faces turn pale at the sight of them was priceless. Kevin couldn't help but chuckle, finally having the satisfaction of seeing his tormentors finally face the consequences of their actions. He looked up at the lady, who winked at him, sharing the moment of sweet justice. As Christmas came and went, a sense of resignation settled over Kevin's family. Despite their best efforts, the search for Kevin had come up empty. The worry and fear for their lost boy weighed heavily on their hearts, causing their mother to break down in despair. "Maybe it's time to let go," his father suggested, his voice soft and heavy with guilt. The idea of giving up on finding Kevin was unbearable, but the weeks of endless searching and hoping had worn away at their resolve. Eventually, they decided to follow his father's suggestion and end the search, tears streaming down their faces. "Maybe we'll never see him again," his mother choked out, her voice quivering with heartbreak. The house felt hollow without Kevin's presence, and every corner seemed to echo with his absence. The joy of the holidays was overshadowed by grief and sorrow. They tried to be strong, but the ache of losing their youngest son remained, a constant, painful reminder of the void in their lives. Late at night, when the rest of the house was asleep, his mother would creep into Kevin's room, clutching his favorite toy, her tears damping the fabric. She would lie on his bed, inhaling the lingering scent of his presence, seeking solace in memories of her bright, curious boy. Eventually, the pain of Kevin's absence began to fade, replaced by a deep, quiet acceptance. Life moved on, but the memories remained. His parents channeled their love and compassion towards their family, cherishing the moments they had with each other. But as years passed, and the holiday season approached once more, the empty chair around the dinner table felt heavier than ever. Despite their efforts to move forward, they couldn't shake the wistful ache for their missing piece, their dear Kevin, who would forever hold a place in their hearts. During the Christmas season, the city adorned itself with twinkling lights and festive sounds, but the joyful cheer was tinged with a touch of melancholy. The holidays were never quite the same without Kevin around to share in the festivities. As the years passed, the memories became sweeter, but the emptiness remained. Every Christmas, Kevin's family would share stories of him, remembering his mischief and the light he brought into their lives. Despite the passage of time, the pain of his absence lingered, a silent shadow that followed them through the holidays. They celebrated as best they could, but the joy was bittersweet, forever tinged with a glimmer of sorrow for the lost boy who remained so close in their hearts. It had been years since that chaotic day Kevin went missing, and his absence had been felt like a void in his family's lives. As the holidays approached once more, Kevin finally returned home. A knock on the door late one Christmas night, soft yet resonant, shattered the silent anticipation. His father opened the door, and there he was, standing in front of them, older, wiser, and carrying the weight of his adventures. Overwhelmed with joy and disbelief, his family embraced the missing piece that had finally returned. In that moment, the warmth and comfort of home wrapped around them, filling the spaces left vacant for so long. As Kevin and his family stood together on the threshold of their home, their arms wrapped around each other in a tight embrace, a sense of peace and belonging washed over them. In that moment, the silence spoke louder than words, the relief and love in their hearts filling the air. The city's festive lights twinkled in the distance, a symbol of hope and renewal. In the midst of the holiday celebrations, Kevin's return marked a new beginning, a testament to the enduring power of family and love.